Yo, yo, to all you enlightened 10-year-olds. Um, this is my little tutorial on what I've done with this piece that I made on Ableton. So, I basically have already done all of my layer cake orchestrations, so everything's already in there. And I'm just going to give you a little breakdown on the different things that I've done to make this outrageous remix. So, I'm going to start with the drums, which look like this. A lot going on here. So I started with this drum set that I made quite a while ago. Um, and I wanted to basically do a remix kind of this drum set and add something different to it and make it into a proper song because I hadn't done anything with it before. Um, so I don't play any instruments. So all of this has been done on my DAW using different instruments and effects and adding automation as well. So anyone can do this if you have an Ableton Live 10 or any Ableton. So let's start with the kick. Let's see if we got here. So yeah, I just got a normal kick on. If we go to my different mixes, let me just find doing it on. I don't think I actually added. Sorry, I did this quite a while ago, so I'm trying to remember what exactly I did. I can show my automated parameters. I haven't added any automation to the kick. I just did a regular kick. I also mixed it up. So instead of just doing a 4-bar kick, I did a 8-bar kick, just to add a bit of difference to it so that it's not the same the whole time. So kick is pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. I'm not going to be able to explain much because I did this so long ago. But I did use a bit of automation on this. This is the most important part, which is I found this sample loop, which is quite fun. So let's see if I can play this.
In class, it's not so bad. But when school's out and the others go off to enjoy themselves.
Yeah. So, as you can see from this one here, I've done, not only have I added a lot of effects, I EQ'd it so that I cut out the bass layers, and I also added an auto filter, which is kind of similar to an EQ. It just takes out all of the excess spectrum that we just don't want anymore. And I added a shaper. I used this shaper rather than one of the weirder ones. If you change it up, it will make different sounds. And I basically use automation to bring in my auto filter and to take it out again as well, which you can see I've done along here as well, and did it all the way up. And then I also just spliced it up. So in this part, it sounds like this. I'm a shy guy, you know. Oh, that is not supposed to be there. That was an experiment. Let's ignore that.
You imagine they keep watching the way you look.
So that very easily is just cutting up. I cut out the high section sort of clap sound from the loop that I had and just spaced it so that sort of adds momentum. These are all equally spaced apart, as you can see, and then I just reduced the bar length here and added them in quick succession so that it makes sort of like a bit like a what do you call it? A high riser effect. So it sounds quite funky. And because I did this with the mastering, basically, because I added automation, these effects continue throughout the whole song on all aspects of my track. So, for example, when I have...
Bad. But when school's out and the others go off to enjoy themselves, well, if you're what they call a shy guy, that's when you really feel it. The loneliness of being...
Right here.
You don't know how...
So when you hear it goes, that's because I've added the automation to it. So because I've added that, it means that all of the tracks, wherever they are, whether it's adding voice or anything, all make the same kind of like movement, same kind of sound, which is just a nice effect to add. So there's my drums. I'm really sorry that I can't give you more information on my drums. I just made them a heck of it, like probably over a year ago, and I just like cannot remember what I did to save the life of me. But most of my drums I've added like, a little bit of reverb, saturator, EQ'd it, also added an auto filter. It's just kind of standard drum work to make it sound nice. And I also added the compressor recently onto some of them because I learned that in class. And it just makes it sound nicer and helps to get some of the sounds out of the way, because I find that often my snare will interrupt my kick, or my hi-hats will just kind of cover that kick. And I really wanted like a nice beefy kick going on there that wasn't being covered by all my other tracks. So I just removed that out by adding a compressor and sidechaining it, which should be sidechained to the kick. And now because that's sidechained to the kick, it's going to sound nice, and it's going to just cut out when the kick is coming in, so we'll definitely hear the kick. So yeah, that's my drum set explained. And now I'll go on to the more interesting part, which is the vocals, which is the bit that I'm actually remixing, and is the part that I've been working on for this. I've also got my piano here, which I have done, and I will get onto that in a minute. So just explaining in terms of what the track looks like. We've got the drums, which are all of these ones up here. Part of my drums, I've got kick, snare, I've got hi-hats, I've got so basically, I spoke to my professor, my hi-hats sounded a bit weird. This is something that I can't explain. So my hi-hats were sounding a bit kind of terrible and flat, and just a bit like, I don't know, like they didn't have any substance, that they weren't very beefy and sort of thick, and didn't sound like they were probably recorded. They sounded like they were samples, which is the issue you have when you're not making your own music and you're using sort of the effects that you get on Ableton. So what I did was I duplicated the layer. So I just duplicated what I had done. Also, I added first to this original track, I put reverb on, I auto filtered it, and I did not add the simple delay. I took it out because I didn't like it. So we can just go ahead and delete that. But I duplicated it, just clicked by Command D. And then went onto the different effects that they have, and I found an instrument which was this clap, which is Zap Clap, which I really liked. And because I had duplicated the track and everything, it came across with the EQ and the reverb from the original one, so it sounded the same. And I just added the Zap Clap onto that, and then stuck on top of it a utility. I added a little bit of gain and some width, and changed the balance so that instead of having it all coming from the center, which would have made a really loud, sort of horrible snare, it sounds now like it's sort of reverberating around the room. So the clap kind of makes it feel as though the snare is sort of springing off the walls or bouncing back towards you. Another thing that I learnt in class. And then I also added a little bit of compression, just because I found that by adding, again, a clap on top, because you're having two layers of the snare sound, that sound then became really loud in comparison to the track, and I just didn't like it. So I added a compression so that it didn't sort of cover the other work that I had done, and you just have a very loud clap. So this is my snare. Oh, I also took out some of the effect that I had put on lots of effects before. I took some of that out so that I got more of the raw sound coming through. So if I sample my hi-hat, you can see I've also EQ'd it to take out these lower frequencies, so you get a nice high sound. If I then solo this, yeah, so that's my crackle.
What else? But still, you can't forget that you're alone.
So that altogether, I think, sounds much more, I don't know, fresh and springy, much higher. I prefer it like that. Yeah, so that is my drum kit. That is my hi-hats and snares. Then I've got this rim hit. My rim hit I really wasn't liking. It just sounded very dead. I really, really hated the original sound of the rim kit. It was just because when you're not recording your own rim kit, it just sounds very like you're just hitting against something, and it didn't have any sound like it was like real. So what I added to that is I added a little bit of reverb so it bounces back. I also auto filtered that to bring down some of the higher frequencies. And then I warmed up the highs. So it just sounds, I don't know, with the warming up of the highs, it basically is a bit like reverb, but it's just like a saturator. So essentially I just saturated it. And that is my rim hit. Did I add any effects? I did not add any effects on my mixer for that, but you could if you wanted. You could automate it. And then I explained the Sango loop already, which I just cut up and muted out in different parts. So basically, it's just replicated twice, so that carries us throughout the track. And basically, the main focus for this track is probably the drum set. Obviously, the vocals are like I did those from the center. And I want them to seem like the main part. But for me, personally, my drum kit is what I wanted people to be noticing. So everything's sort of done around that kick. Yeah, and now I will do a little tutorial for the next video on the piano and then my vocals. I hope you enjoyed my explanation of my drum kit.